Happy Thursday, everyone. Hope everybody's doing well. And we have another Thursday night. Tonight we are discussing the soul review. Last week we discussed our spiritual contracts and how our spiritual contracts we design coming here for our life. In the soul review process, this is what happens after the fact. So, last week we discussed contracts. Tonight we're discussing what the soul review is and the importance of it and what happens. So the reason why I chose this topic is it's been coming up a lot with everyone. And they're asking, Phil, what happens and why am I getting signs or not getting signs? What's happening with the other side that I'm all of a sudden getting this communication and then there's zero communication? So, and I thought, well, this is a perfect opportunity to tell everybody how this works and what happens on the other side through this process. So in the beginning, when you lose somebody, the soul often reaches out. Now, depending on your level of grief, we either get communication or we don't get communication, okay? It's just the way it is. There's no way for you to change that. But in the beginning stages, people often get dreams or they often smell the person around them or whatever the particular sign is to them. So, and then that goes on for several weeks. They get many visitations and they get a lot of communication, and then there's this lull. And the person saying, what's going on? Why did I all of a sudden stop getting this communication? Why did I stop feeling the people around me? There's two reasons. So the first reason is the longer I stay connected to you and always around you, the more I prevent you from going into your grief. And if the soul prevents you from going into grief, then it cannot consistently communicate with you because it's staying attached to you. The second reason why this could happen is the soul has gone into the soul review. So what is the soul review? It's a little confusing for people, but let me explain to you what it is. After you've done your contract here, depending on however it ends or whatever may happen, you are now have to go into the process of, how did I do? How did I do on earth? So, and many people think that this soul review specifically just addresses the family, meaning that, was I a good father? Was I a good wife? Was I a good child? Was I a good whatever? Well, it goes much deeper than that, because the soul review is, how did my behaviors affect other people? And I didn't really understand this for many years, because for many years, as I was doing readings, the soul would just refer to it that they're in review. And I never pursued it any further. So it was only over the last few years with my guide, Isaac, and I started looking at, I asked him, I said, what is going on here? And he says, the soul goes into review. It's called the soul review. So a lot of you may not know the terminology with this because I just learned it because the other side taught it to me. So again, none of this is my ideas. This is my teachings or what they've taught to me. So what happens in this soul review? Well, they go into their own special place, and in that, their life replays in front of them. So, and you would think that this would be a fast process, but yes, this happens after death. So you would think this would be a difficult process, like it would, or a quick process, but it's not, because when you go into the soul review, you go in with, when I did this behavior, how did it affect these people, and how did it affect? So it's played out in front of you. So it would be kind of like if you made a fool of yourself and someone took a video of it and then you had to watch it again. There's embarrassment, there's sadness, there's miscommunication, there's all of these things. So the soul is really rewatching its entire life. And not only is it rewatch its entire life, it's watching the finger effects, these spin-off effects of how it affected other people. So, and then it has to process that. So what happens is it goes in and out of the soul review process because it gets a little intense. It gets a little much. So then they'll take a step out of it and say, I'm going to check on everybody on my earth. And then we get communication again. And then the soul will go back and do it. So it goes in and out of this process for a while. So for some people, the soul review process can be quick. And for many of us, it's a slower process because A, we're not in a hurry, and B, you're trying to understand this. Why does this even matter? Why does this even matter? Why even go through the soul review process? Well, we're checking to see if we accomplished, as we talked last week, the things that we set up in our contract to come to earth, and how did we achieve on this. We're grading ourselves. There's nobody over there judging us. There's nobody over there grading us. And I know everybody's going to want to get into a tear about bad people and is anybody judging them? But remember, the soul review is a judgment process by self. No one can judge you harsher by yourself, because no matter even if you committed a crime, or if you harmed children, or if you harmed whoever else, you have to watch all of that. You have to this all has to play out in front of you. So this is not an easy process for any soul that's crossed over. For souls that were unable to deal with their contract here on earth, they have to go through that and see, why couldn't I? So I had a reading this morning, my first reading this morning. I'll give you an example of the soul review process. And I said, I'm going to use this, I got permission to use this example. So my first client, and as her mother comes through, I asked her, what did you learn in your soul review process? And one of her highlights was, I learned that I was an intelligent woman born into a time or an era where I was afraid to go out into the world and own my power. She had, she was an intelligent individual, but felt that she had to stay behind. And she says, Phil, that was one of my contractual agreements to come here, where I was going to use blank and become this. And I didn't do it because I allowed my fears of society and everything else to do that. So boom, that's a perfect example of what the soul review is. So it shows us what we were very good at and what maybe we didn't get to achieve. So Corinne's asking, how long does this process take? For some souls, it can take a month. For some souls, it can take years. It all depends on how far the soul wants to jump into this here. Again, it's a scary thing. When someone passes, does it mean that they're fulfilled their contract? Okay, perfect question. And we answered this last week. But when someone passes, it doesn't mean that they fulfilled their contract. That's why the soul review is a necessity, because it really is checks and balances, right? So you're going to look at this and you're going to look at that, and you're going to say, ooh, did these things ever match up? Did these things ever happen? Remember, there's outside influences that we have to come over. So the soul looks at that and say, was I peer pressure? Did I give in to certain things? Did I give up? Did I not try? Did I sit back and allow things to happen and not take action? So all of these very, very important things happen in the soul review process. And then at the end, well, not really at the end of it, but during the whole thing, the soul is still evolving, because it's learning, oh, I missed the boat on this one. Oh, I shouldn't have done this. I had a father come in, and one of the things that he said was, my way of loving my children was financially providing. In the soul review process, I realized I should have praised them. I should have told them that I love them. Money was not a necessity. I've never met a soul ever in my entire career tell me how much they've made in their lifetime, because it is not important. All it looks at is what it missed the boat on. So in that conversation with the father, he says, Phil, I thought the kids knew I loved them. But it was some of the kids required that they needed a hug, they needed a pat on the back, they needed to go do that. So it's very important, because as the soul goes through this process, it keeps, as I said, it keeps growing and it keeps understanding. It will see, why didn't I love my child? Why didn't I hug my kid? Why didn't I go for that job? Why didn't I take that risk? Why did I allow myself to get turned? And it goes through that process, and it sees how that chapter in its life. And the soul review process is often broke down through chapters. So the best way I could describe it to you, as Isaac said it to me, was it's broken down over every 10 years that you're alive. So you'll take these 10 years and you'll say, this is what happened in my 20s, this is what happened in my 30s, 40s, and it just keeps going. So, and as these chapters unfold, we're able to process it much easier. I already judged myself over and over and working on it to stop. Anything I can do to change it? So self-judgment is something very different. I can't read the rest of the question because there's something going on here. Self-judgment is another thing that may be part of your contract for you to overcome. So if we live, we lie, we tell lies, and self-gain or so we have to answer.
So if I live a lie and tell lies for self-gain, our souls will have to answer to us?
So if you live a lie and tell a lie and for self-gain, will your soul have to answer to us? It answers to it's answering really to itself and to the people that it harmed. or maybe didn't harm. Maybe it helped grow. So remember, the soul and the physical vessel are not the same thing. So it's kind of like you get a new car. So I explained that last week. So anyway, let me just continue with this here so I don't get off track here about the soul review process, because it's really, really important, because you come here to evolve through whatever you want to work through. You can't come here and pick a cozy life. So that's not how it works, right? So you may pick a first cozy life, and your second one's going to be harder, but we all go through these different things. One of the things that the soul always tells me is, Phil, experience cannot be taught. And secondly, pain helps us evolve. And as much as none of us want to go through pain or through discomfort or anything like that, it's a necessity in order to get us to evolve. Many of you could say, so I could live a happy life, yada, 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 I don't need pain to evolve. And your contract may say that. That's why you came in. You came in for a calm contract. Some of us have gone into other contracts where things are a little more difficult. And what we're trying to do is navigate it through it without harming others. That's the essential part of the soul review is, could I get through my contract without dragging others into my mess or dragging other people into my path? So they would become a buffer so I wouldn't have to address certain things. So then the soul's got to do all that. It's got to look through all of those behaviors. So it's a very time-consuming process for us here on Earth. Because it'll take many years of Earth years. But to the other side, they can do it quickly or they can do it slowly, depending on how much they have to go through. So, and what I mean by that is it all depends on the type of contract that I had. Did I come in here with an easy contract? Did I come in here with a difficult contract? Did I spend my time on Earth wisely, or was I foolish with it? So it all depends on how much damage it did to itself going through. Now remember, Phil, why would the soul want to damage itself? It doesn't. It's the human body that wants to do that. They're separate things. So, and again, why I say that is human influence makes us do certain behaviors, or we get caught up in stuff and things like that. So the soul is always trying to pull you back to get back on its path. Always. So no matter how much we veer off from that, it's trying to bring you back to the path, because its main purpose is, can I accomplish why I came here? All the distractions are the little things that bombard us, distract us from the contract, and the soul is trying to tell you, don't pay attention to that, pay attention to what you came here. So really what it's saying is, don't pay attention to the nonsense. Focus on the big things and the reasons why you came here. Go ahead, Jasper.
So we have a question. During the soul review, do souls feel regret, sadness, any emotion at all?
So during the soul review, does the soul feel any sort of emotion whatsoever? Absolutely. And there's a big misconception. Well, again, this is only what I have seen from the souls that I have spoken to over the years. But there's this misconception that I was at least raised to believe, that when the soul passes over, it immediately goes into joy. That does not happen. So, and it does not happen because you cannot leave your contract early, die suddenly or whatever it is, and woohoo, while your whole family's here grieving. So as they grieve, you grieve. So yes, the soul experiences emotion. It's a different type of emotion than the human emotion, the depths that we feel here. So it's a totally different thing, but they still experience emotion. They still experience loss. They still experience sadness. So they don't experience fear. So that's one of the things that I learned during the soul review process. There's no fear. So, but they do experience those other things. Do people such as a serial killer get a soul review and get other chances to redeem themselves? So yes, no matter who you are, every soul has to go through the soul review. Redemption is not something that you get to the other side in the soul review process and say, woo-wee, I missed the ball on that. I'm coming back not to kill people. Okay, so the soul doesn't do that. There's many things that create a killer, but in this, if we're talking in general terms, the other side doesn't do that. It doesn't look at that and say, I have to come back and do that. What it says is, I should do that. Like if Jasper and I travel, we're like, we didn't get to that side of the country. We should try that. Next time we should try that. So it is physically impossible in your human lifetime to accomplish every single thing. My videos upload to my YouTube channel. So somebody had said, Phil, in reincarnation, I don't believe in reincarnation, which is totally fine. But you have to ask yourself this question. And I'm a very logical person for the most part. And I prefer to think of things logically. There's no way can a soul evolve to its entire being in one lifetime. It's impossible. I mean, when you think about it, it's physically impossible. So you can't experience all of these things in one single lifetime because we get so caught up with other things that we don't accomplish our contract. I have never met a soul, unless it's an old soul, who says, I accomplished everything I came here. Old souls come in as teachers, so they don't come in with baggage. So they're coming in as educators. They're coming in to evolve the world. I'm not an old soul. I'm a new soul. So they're coming in to help us. So, and those souls come in as humans, and they become guides and become teachers and become educators and become all of those things. So it's I want you all to understand that it cannot be done in one single setting. In the soul review, do you see the bad things that have happened to us? Absolutely. So we also see the things that were done to us, not just what we've done onto other people. And then we see the things that were done to us and what we did with those. Did I allow that to play another role in my life? And if I was the victim, did I become the perpetrator? So that's another thing that people go through. If I grew up in an abusive household, did I become abusive? So remember, because the free will aspect of all of this has a major, major role in trying to deviate you from your path. Phil, why would something try to deviate me from my path? So it's really what's really happening there is that's the free will in humanity, because the part of us gets caught up in society and saying, maybe I want this, maybe I want that. It doesn't come here saying, I'm going to stick to the plan, because remember, you come in with no memory of what you're coming with. But what you do have as a compass is your solar plexus, and that's your gut. So your gut will never lead you astray. It will always tell you what to do. And that's the beauty of hindsight, right? You look back and you're like, my gut told me not to do that. And I went against it, and I went against it. Your gut is your direct communication to your soul. So it's going to tell you what's going on. Go ahead, Jasper.
So how does the soul review impact your choices with your future contracts, with future lives?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
How does the soul review impact your future choices and your contracts in your future life?
So how does your soul review impact your future choices in your life? Okay, so here's the thing. The soul review, again, is not to come back and say, I'm going to retry this, or I'm going to redo this. What it's doing is it's taking a package and it's putting it together in its contract, and it says, I'm going to give this a whirl. Let's see if I can accomplish these things. Let's see if I can do these things. So it's not like if I don't get through this particular set of contract that I can't evolve. It's just going to say, that didn't work for me. I wasn't into that. So I'm going to stay away from that, and I'm going to try something next. So I think a lot of people believe that we come through our contract, and if we don't overcome certain things in our contract, we have to come back and redo it. That is not true. Okay, so that is not true. It just says, that didn't work for me, or I didn't like that. But there are certain things in order to get the soul evolving that it has to overcome. The basics of understanding, the compassion, the love, all that. Peter, I see you writing political comments. I don't do that stuff here. So it's very important that that you understand that if you miss something, it's not held against you. You look at this and you say to yourself, okay, how did that really affect my life? Was it a major player? Was it a small player? Whatever the situation may be. So that's really where it's about. So the judgment is not really the same judgment as we have here in humanity. It's a different type of judgment. It's all about how much did I learn? How much did I evolve? And if I come back, am I leaving a positive stamp on humanity. Like, I remember a soul telling me, and it was really into the environment, imagine if every human picked up a piece of trash on the planet. Like, imagine if every able body, so obviously there's people that can't, but imagine if every able body did one positive thing to move forward in the planet. It'd be a totally different place. So we can only do what we come here to do, and we can only come here and do the best that we can. But when you have knowledge of something, you have a responsibility you really have a responsibility to address it. So if you know something and you choose to look the other way, you're accountable for that. There's just no other way around it. So you may not want to face it, but the moment you have knowledge, you have responsibility to do something about it. And often that translates into what I've learned with the soul is about yourself. If you have something that you've learned about yourself and you choose not to address it, you are responsible. If you've learned that you have a sickness, if you learned that you have a weakness, if you learned that you have something, you have a responsibility to do that. That's the soul telling you, hey, that's contractual, let's face this. And then the human part of you would say, that's scary, I don't want to do that. But the soul is still going to always make you try and face it because it's telling you, this is part of our contract, this is why we came here, let's do that. And as I said many times, it could be as simple as standing up on stage. It could be simple as reading out loud. That's Phil. Don't like it. Freaks me out because my brain just works differently. So, but again, these are all, so they're minor things. They're not always major. And a lot of people think that the soul comes here to do major things. The soul comes here just for a journey. Not everybody comes here to be a rock star. Not everybody comes here to be, a writer. Some people just come through to check out what Earth is like, and it sets some challenges for itself. So that's really the simplicity of this. But what happens is in the soul review, why it takes so long, is we get caught up in the human part, and that's what complicates it. Go ahead, Jasper.
Is there any way to tell right now if you're doing okay in your contract?
So, is there any way to tell right now if you're doing okay in your contract? Yeah, if you're feeling like you're content, if you're feeling like you're on the right place, if you're feeling like, okay, everything's going smooth right now. So that tells us that we're on our path. Often when we're off our path, everything just feels wrong. It's complicated, it's annoying, it doesn't feel right. Everything you try to do is pissy. It's just like nothing is working. And that's how you can tell this is not my right contract. This is not a good fit for me. So but when things are going nice and smooth, that's telling us this is the right place. Now, things can be going nice and smooth and you have a bad day at work. That doesn't mean that you're off your contract. That just means that you had a bad day at work. So don't go around jumping around like that. You have to endure some things through the contract also, As I said in my previous video, just because you put down the bottle doesn't mean you're magically healed. There's many things that have to happen in order to start finding healing. And why is that important? Why is self-understanding important? Because if you're self-aware and you're present, then you can be aware of your contract and what you're here to do. So, and being aware of your contract simply just helps you find your place in Earth. That's what it's all about. It's about finding where you want to be and where you belong. So it's about finding what your little happiness is, what your happy zone is. That's what it's about and why you came here. Some people just came here to paint. I've met souls that just simply came here to paint. No other reason. Some souls just come here to read. There's some souls come here to help. Some souls come here to teach. I mean, there's just so many souls out there doing so many amazing things that if you allow yourself to get caught up in the negative things that we see on television, you're forgetting for all the one negative thing you see, there's billions of wonderful things being done. And that's what the soul has, that's what we look at is, do I choose to look at the positive or do I choose to look at the negative? And if you look at the positive in things, your soul is always going to recorrect you and put you right exactly where you belong. Go ahead, Jasper.
Susan asks, what if a loved one dies suddenly? Does that have to do anything to do with your own soul's journey?
So what if somebody dies suddenly, who's part of my life? Does that have something to do with the old soul's journey? Thank you for asking that, because it's a brilliant question, Susan. Depending on who you lose, you will come in knowing that I'm going to lose that person at this particular time. And this death is going to cause me to do blank. So depending on how you react to the death, that is what part of your contract's going to be. So yes, it is part of your own soul's journey. So you all knew this was going to happen on the other side. You didn't know it was going to happen here. And then that's the way it goes. Go ahead, Jasper.
So we have a question from Donna.
Yep.
Donna asks, how does a soul that was weak on earth critically judge their review?
How does a soul that was weak on earth critically judge its review? So again, because it's not the soul that's weak, it's the physical being. The soul is urging the physical body, let's overcome this. See, the soul is the cheerleader for us to finish our contract. The soul's not weak. It's the physical body that may have been broken down or passive or whatever the situation may be. So it would get over there and look at itself and say, I should have stood up. I could have stood up. I could have spoken up. I could have done these things. But I gave in to my fear. And when you give in to fear, it's so much easier not to address. So fear is a simple thing for us to stay stuck and not advance down our contract. The hard thing is to overcome it. And if you overcome it, you will realize it has no power over you. Go ahead, Jasper.
So Betty wants to jump ahead.
Yes.
She wants to know, is there any way to do a soul review while we're still alive?
So is there any way to do a soul review? Betty, no, but I love where you're going with this. Can I do a soul review? Well, actually, you really can. So I try to do this on a daily basis. Believe me, guys, I'm far from perfect. You know, I've always put my stuff out here. I have no reason to hide my lessons from you. So you can do a soul review early and see what you've gone through in the past X amount of time of your life. You can go through here and say to yourself, how have I done so far? Oh, it's been a rough road. Oh, it's been an easy road. Oh, it's been a pleasant road. Oh, so you can look back on the life that you've led and say to yourself, woohoo, I'm doing great, or I need to change up some things. But if there's a constant discomfort that's coming up for you, that tells you that you have to address it. I see. Hi, Pat. How are you guys doing? Go ahead, Jasper.
Pat actually just said that Kevin and I became grandparents.
Oh my God, congratulations. And I don't know why I didn't see that on Facebook. So that must have just happened recently. So that's fantastic. I'll reach out to Justin and Josh. Go ahead, Jasper.
So Lisa says, my son recently passed at the age of 18. Was his contract to die young or mine to experience ultimate loss?
Both. So I lost my son. He was 18 years old. Was his contract to die young and was mine to experience profound loss? Both. It's a horrible thing. I actually want to do a video, and I was just talking to Jasper and stuff about this, on the survivors. Because a lot of people give attention to the people that have died, but they don't really realize that the survivors it's horrible being the survivor. It's horrible being the one left behind. Horrible. And for people that haven't experienced true loss or real loss, the survivor is in a horrible situation. It's very difficult. But we'll talk about that later. Again, the soul would look through this and say, I know what I'm going to cause you. You would have signed up for that. Go ahead, Jasper.
Do we do our soul review by ourselves, or are we able to do it with other people who have passed?
So you can do your soul review with yourself. You can do it with your family, depending on who's over there. So if your family is with you, you can go through the soul review, because there may be family members that affected your life when you're here on earth, and you're going to need them and say, why did this happen? Why did you do this? And then what happens is they kind of just start going through untangling everything, and then we get to an understanding of how all of these things happen, why all of these things take place. This is all done without judgment. This is done simply to the knowledge, are going through, I'm here to learn and I'm here to evolve. It's not going through a judgment process. So it's not there saying to itself, hey, I'm judging you. Go ahead, Jasper.
So going back to Lisa's question,
Yep.
So aren't there accidental deaths, or are all deaths contractually timed?
Thank you very much. There are two things. There are contractually timed deaths, and there's simply accidental deaths. So there are two. There are people that get hit by drunk drivers. You can say that that's accidental or contractual. Or there are souls that come in here and they know they're going to die young of diseases and certain things like that. It all depends on the circumstance. But yes, I've met many souls that have accidentally died and said to me, Phil, was not my time to go, and my life was taken from me. And then there's other souls that says, Phil, I've ended my contract early, or I accidentally ended my contract, or I intentionally ended my contract. I'll take one more question. Go ahead, Jasper.
Okay. Unrelated to this topic, Shannon.
Shannon, thank you.
Are your Thursday evenings just a year journey for you / us, or are you going to continue after Thanksgiving?
Well, Shannon, that is a hot debate in my life right now, is can we continue to do this? So here's how I'm going to end this all. This has been an amazing journey for Jasper and I have learned so much from this. But I'm going to be very honest with you. It's very hard to start crunching this into another year into my calendar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be still have a presence here on Facebook Live once a month. And I'm going to be doing uploads of new videos on YouTube of particular topics. So we're trying to work out what we're doing and how this is going to work. And then the other thing is too is my Friday nights, I don't believe we have any more dates available. I'm going to check with people. I know I've been getting emails about that. But I guess what I'm trying to say here is there's just one of me, and I'm not sure how far to stretch Phil. I really don't. I don't know how to answer that at this time. But I love you all, and this is very important for us, and for me anyway, that I've done this with you, and I hope to continue it. So I'm not sure what will happen after Thanksgiving, but I'm sure the other side will guide me, and I'll know where I'm going. So I will see you all next Thursday. Yes, next Thursday we'll be here, and I'll have a new topic for you all. And anybody has any questions, go to philquinn.com. Again, for anybody that's watching this, or for the new people that are watching this, if you want to book a reading, please go directly to philquinn.com. If you have family coming home from the holidays, please have them booked, because my calendar is already starting to fill out and as limited as it is. So I thank you all, and I will see you next week. Thanks so much.